So in creating a forum, there's different places where you can start. This is one of them. And again, your colleagues may start from a different spot, but here's one. So here, these buttons up here, we're going to create and add content. This time for a forum, I'm going to hover over Tools, and then I'm going to click on Discussion Board. So now here, if I've created a discussion forum, I could just click on this other button and link it, but I'm not going to. I'm actually going to create a brand new forum right from here. So then I'm going to say it's my Unit 2 before discussion. And then underneath, there is this content editor box. And this is where I like to put the prompt and the instructions to students. Now you're going to see another content editor box, another text box, and it's just important to know that they are two different boxes. And I'll show you that a little bit later. I'm going to just type in here instructions and prompt, so that when we finish completing the forum, you're going to see the difference. And the main reason to know the difference is if you then update either your instructions and prompt or this other area where you may consider putting just some instructions. Some instructors think it's the same. They think it's the same text box. They update one, but then the other section is an update and they get really confused. So I just want to make sure that it's really clear. So for a couple of reasons, I like to put it where I'm creating my forum, I put it in this initial text box here. There's a couple of reasons, and I'll get to that as I'm going through some of the settings. So here's this availability. That's making it, visible during a certain time frame if you like, and we've covered that in the course in the Blackboard for effective course development. So I'm going to continue on and just look at some of these settings here. Many of them I find the default is perfectly acceptable. So I'm going to highlight just a few here. The first one is under the forum settings, this viewing threads or replies. Now the default is what we call a standard view. And that means that all students, if other students have posted their responses and responses to other students, all students can see that. They can see the whole forum, all their responses before they submit their own response. And the other one is what we typically call the post first. The participants must create a thread in order to view other threads in the forum. So that has its advantages if this appeals to your course design, in that students, instead of what could happen, students look around, they look at the other responses of the discussion forum, and then they kind of cobble together their own response that's kind of unique looking, but they really didn't use a lot of their own thought. If you want to avoid something like that, or the other option is, the other scenario that I can think of is, student has this great idea, this great post, and then they're looking at the other posts, the other responses, and they're like, that person took my idea, now I can't post my idea. Well, this way it can help avoid, even if they have similar ideas, they won't know it until they post their own response. And then they've got something in common, then they can talk about that. So that's a couple of different ideas behind the two types of posts that two types of forums you may create. Now, if you choose this second option, participants must create a thread, this is why I like putting the prompt up here, because you cannot, as an instructor, put your prompt in a thread by creating a thread, because the students won't see it until they post their own response, not even the instructor's threads. So putting it up here helps them see it before they create their own response. So that's why just across the board, even if I'm doing a standard view like I'm doing today, I just tend to put it up here. So the other important option you have to think about is whether or not you want to grade your discussion forum. The default is it's not graded. You know, that course, the Q&A section, your water cooler, building community type section, probably wouldn't be grading those. But if you want it for something that's a low stakes assessment or some other type of use for your forum that you're going to grade, then you've got to choose that option. And then some of the forums some of the settings are automatically enabled for you. I tend to use the default. They seem perfectly acceptable to me. So once you decide you want to grade your forum, then you just have to put the number of points in there. And similar to Blackboard assignments, once you make something that's graded, even if you would for some reason put 0 in here, it's going to create a grade center column for you. And it's going to connect it to the category called discussion. So once you create that, then as you're creating your grade center, then you may need to adjust the categories depending on how you set up your grade center. Then due dates are optional. We've talked about that in creating Blackboard assignments. Nice way to communicate with students when it is coming due. And then this show participants in needs grading is handy. You can change this to anything you want. So once a particular student hits this, whatever this minimum is, you can make it whatever you would like. Then it's going to show up in the needs grading area. But I'll show you a couple of ways that you can grade your forum. So I think that's pretty handy. Then these, as I said, I'm not going to go over all of these settings here near the bottom. Like I said a couple of times, I find the defaults are pretty acceptable, and I generally don't change them or have found a need to change them. So I'm going to submit. So now that I've created my forum, so keep that in mind. Now I can choose it, and it's going to create a link. And this is where we're going to see that second text box where it's important to differentiate the two. So I'm going to choose my forum that I just created, and now I'm going to click Next. So now here is this second text box where it's a link to the forum, because as I'll show you, see over here on the left side of your screen where it says discussions, that link, that's really where all the discussion forums are. They're really in that. They're on a separate page. They're not on the content pane. What's on the content pane is this link. So here, if you wanted to tell students instructions, make sure that you post your response early in the week so that other students have a chance to respond to your post. And then, post 2 of the responses to your peers or something like that. So you could put that there. You don't have to put anything there if you don't want to, but I do discourage putting exactly the same thing that was in your forum description, because that's where you might forget and think, oh, I'm going to update this description, and you update it here on the content pane where this link is, but in the forum itself it's not updated. So that's going to cause a little bit of confusion and create more work for you. And here's this options for in terms of availability that we've talked about in other sessions. So I'm going to go ahead and click Submit. So now here is my forum. If I click on it, if I were a student, I could just click on it. And now here, there's nothing here. There's no question there. But then a student would go to create a thread. And now here's the instructions and the prompt. So they can see the instructions in the prompt as they're crafting their answer. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you think that students will, if it's a pretty meaty response and they may need to do a little research, instead of crafting their response here, and this is just from a student perspective, as a student, this is what I did, is I actually used a Microsoft Word document. I crafted my response there because sometimes I was kind of pokey. It took me a while, and I wouldn't want this to time out. So then I craft it, I wait, and then I copy it, and then I paste it into the forum. Just a little student perspective that you may want to share with your students. So there, a student can make their response. They see the prompt up there. They hit submit. Oh, I didn't put my subject in there. Oh yeah, here's my response. There we go. And then click submit. So there's the thread that other students can see and then respond to as well. So I'm going to go back to the content area. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take you now. So I mentioned what we just did is we started off in the folder on my content pane where I wanted to put this forum. So that was one way to do it. As an instructor and as a student, over here, this discussions link, and this is again for entire class discussions. If I click on that link, there's all my forums. So as an instructor, I can quickly see what I haven't read yet, and I could quickly see how many posts there are, and I can go in and interact with the students, and the students could do that too. Or there's that link in the folder where you actually have it, which I recommend putting that link there so that it's together and organized well with the rest of your content for your unit. Okay, so now here is my discussion board. Now you saw in the settings for the forum that after every X number of posts for a student, that's per student, it's going to go to this needs grading area. So that's under the grade center and needs grading. You can do that, and that's perfectly fine. One thing that I like to do is because I like to interact. It's a good rule of thumb to interact with the discussion forums with the students. That establishes a presence. They know that you're there. They know that you're supporting them. You don't have to respond to every single question. In fact, I don't recommend that, because then they're just going to wait for you to respond, and then okay, they're going to tell us the answer. The instructor's going to tell us, it's just going to kind of dampen their creative thinking and their analysis and critical thinking. But then you can, by forum, click on the forum itself. So if I'm going to back up a minute, if I need to make changes in my forum itself, not the link to the forum that's in my content folder, but the forum itself, if I need to change my instructions here, I do have to click on this discussions link here, and then here's my forum. I hover over the title, click on the options menu, and I click edit. That's going to take me back to my original where I want to put my prompt. I scroll down, and there's all my settings. But if I want to interact and then grade the forum, I can just click on the name of the forum itself. So there I can see all the students' posts. Up here in the right corner, it says list view. If you wanted to see a tree view, which is all the posts and then little expansion opportunities, you can see that as well. You can play around with that to see what you like best. So one of the settings I wanted to point out before I show you about one way to grade it is the subscribe button. This is what you and the students have if you want a notification in your email that that activity is occurring in the forum. Just hit that subscribe button, and then you'll start receiving notifications that people are posting in the forum. Then when you're done, then you can just click unsubscribe and you'll stop getting those notifications. Then to interact, of course, you just click on the student response, and then there it is. Click reply, and whatever you're going to put there, and hit submit. And I'm going to click OK to go back to the forum. So here, next to the subscribe button on the left, here's one place besides the needs grading area where I can grade discussion forums. So I've interacted, I read the posts, I've got a good picture of the forum as a whole. Then I can click grade discussion forum. And I see I've already graded it, but I'm just going to go in and show you, even though I've graded it. All of the students in the course would be listed here, and you could see how many posts they have. If there wasn't a grade here, there'd just be a little hash mark there. And you could then click this grade button. And then this is just what it would look like in the needs grading area, where you would see only this student's posts, their initial response and their initial post and any responses to other students. So then you can go and you can look and you can make your decision. If you hit the reply here within the post, that's replying to the forum. So if you wanted to share feedback only to the students in terms of grading, don't hit the reply button here. What you'll want to do then is here, enter the feedback to the learner. So this is private only to that student. You can, indicate whatever feedback you want to give them. And then this would have been 0. There would have been nothing there, and then I would just hit the grade. When I made this little template, I made it out of 0 points, but that would be, you would see if it's 50 points or 10 points, then you would give them however many points out of how many they could earn. And then you click the submit button, and then click OK, and then takes it right back to that grading of the discussion forum users. Then you can go down to the next student and grade it that way. So 2 different options for grading, and then that's what the responses look like. So in the first step here then is to make groups. On the left side of my screen here, I'm going to click on users and groups, and then I'm going to click on groups. So here, just for a group assignment, I already have one group created. But if you're going to divide your whole class up into groups, then I'm going to show you how you can make what's called a group set. That's the most efficient way. Again, other ways to do it. So here, I'm going to hover on Create, and then I'm going to go over to the group set side. And then I want to choose what students go into which group, so I'm going to manually enroll them. The other most popular one is just, I'm going to have Blackboard decide who goes in what group. I'm going to randomly have them do it. Either way is fine. I'm going to show you the manual option today. So then I want to name my group set. Keep in mind, this is not group 1, because that's one group in your whole group set. If you want 6 groups, your group set is these 6 groups in a set. So maybe I'm going to call it Teams. Let's just say Teams is the name of my group set. This will be more clear in just a few minutes. Then I tend to not put a description there unless I know I'm going to create a lot of different groups and I need to keep track of my different group sets. That might be the case is if you have several group assignments and you want to mix up the groups. You don't want those students in the same group the whole semester, then you need different group sets. So you might, just to keep them straight, put a description in there, but I'm not going to do that today. Then you've got a whole bunch of tools. Once you create a group set, they all have a bunch of tools available. I recommend just to keep it clean and organized for students in the course. If you're not using these other tools, then just uncheck them. The only one I want to use is my discussion forum, my discussion board, so that's the only one I'm going to keep. I usually allow students to personalize it. That's usually like they can change colors and things. And then I have to say how many groups I want to create in my group set. So let's just say I want to make 6. So now I'm going to click Submit to start creating my 6 groups that are within my group set. So here's my teams, name of my group set. Now you see Teams Group 1, Teams Group 2, Teams Group 3, 4, 5, and so on. That's where your actual individual group names will be. And you can change that. Maybe your students want to create, names for themselves. The Panthers, the Team Panther is here, and Team Falcon is here, and then this is Team Cardinal, and so on. So you could change the name if you like. And then once you have, I'm just going to go up to Team Panther here, then you want to add your users. So click on Add Users. And now I get my whole roster of students. And then I can pick all the students that I want in my team. And actually, I'm going to do it this way because then you can sort any way you want. They sort it by phone number. I'm actually just going to do it by last name. So then I pick the people that I want in this first Team Panther. I click Submit and they appear. Oops, if I make a mistake, I can just click the X and get rid of one. If I need to add more, I can just click Add Users again. And then I go down to Team Falcon and I click Add Users again. This is why I like a group set. All those 4 students that were in my Team Panther, they don't appear here. So I'm not going to accidentally add a student to more than one group. And that's what's really handy about making a group set in this way. So I'm not going to make all my groups, but you can get the idea. I'll just keep going down. If I realize, oops, I only needed 5 teams, I have no more students, I can just click Delete Group. Or if I don't have enough teams, I can add a group and then just add whoever I need to. Now, the reason the roster kind of shrinks as I'm adding students to each of my groups, it's because this filter is here, is I hide members already in another group set. If for some reason I wanted students to be overlapping, I'm not sure why, but it is possible, you would just uncheck this box. But I don't want that. That's why I like this group set. Okay, so imagine I added all my users to my groups in this set. I click Submit. And now here is my group set called Teams, and then the name of each individual group. So I didn't do 4, 5, and 6, but here's Team Cardinal, Team Falcon, Team Panther. And then I can see how many are enrolled in each of my groups in this set. So that's the first step. And just by the way, after we do this group discussion board, we're going to do a group assignment. This is the same first step that you will use, is create your groups. Okay, so now that I have my groups, I'm not going to go up here to my discussions link, because this, again, only for an entire class. And I'm not going to do it in this case to my content area. I'm going to go back to my groups. And now here I'm going to go to Team Cardinal. I'm going to click, if I need to make changes, there's that magic down arrow for my options. I can edit, I can open it, I can email them. But I'm going to click on the name of the team, or the group itself, the team. And then I can see, oh, I want to go where there's people in it. Let's go back to groups. Let's go to Team Falcon here. So I click on Team Falcon. Then I can see who's in this team. And then I can see the tools available. This is where it's streamlined. I'm not going to use those other tools. I don't want to clutter it up by having them listed here if we're not going to use them. And then if I were to create a group assignment, which I'm going to do next, it would be under here. So I'm going to click on my group discussion board. Again, just a reminder, it's not over here on the left on that discussions link. It doesn't live there. It lives here. So now you get a little starter forum that you can also create more forums if you like, but there's this first one here. I can click on that down arrow. I can click edit. And then here's where it looks just like creating that entire class discussion forum. Same exact settings. Again, just lives in a different place after you create your groups. Then you go into the groups and that tool to create your forum. Works the same way. There's my prompt. There's my lovely settings. I can decide if I want to grade it or not, which I'm going to, and then I'm going to click submit. So there it is. And then I would go back to groups. Then I'd go to Team Cardinal and do the same thing. Team Panther, do the same thing. And that's for them to then interact with just the members of their team. So I'm going to go over to the Grade Center actually, so you can see what that looks like. Because it is helpful to know, because what sometimes happens is the beginning of the semester, you make your groups, you put them into teams, and then one student drops your course or another student adds your course. Well, then you're going to have to come here and go in to edit your group and then add that student. If I click over here and I oh, it's down here. It's got to be here. Right. Yes, add users. So I can click add users, and then if the other users are already assigned, just that one student who just added my course is going to be here, and then I can choose that student and I can add them to the group again. I can do that later. And another indicator is if I go to the Full Grade Center. So here are, now that's group presentations. We'll look at that in a minute. And actually here's Team Falcon. So here's Team Falcon. Remember, that's only the 4 or 5 members in the group. So here I can tell that here this student is in that group and these 3 students are in the group because it's waiting for a grade. I haven't graded it yet, but it's waiting. I can tell with this grayed out bar here, these students are not in the group. So that's just another way to see, because for each group discussion forum, you are going to get a separate column for each team. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so that is, and then everything else, I mean, you'll grade it the same way. You can do it through needs grading, or you can go through the forum itself and grade it, and so on. So students, the student view, when they're added to a group, they don't have this course management panel down here. That's for you as an instructor, but they'll see groups down here, and they'll see groups that they're a member of if they're in multiple groups. So that's one way that they can access their group. Another way is if you want to target in a certain unit. Now this is not organized according to the 3-phase model, but if you had a certain place where you wanted to put your groups either in a unit folder, or maybe the groups are going to interact periodically throughout, so you could just put a link to the groups here on the main content page. So to do that, again, it's a link. I'm going to hover on Tools, and here I'm going to click on Groups. So let's try my group set. Let's just do Teams. I think it's just Teams. Yes, it is. Now that I think about it, it is. All right, let's just do that. So here's my Teams. So I can move it up. I'm not going to do that right now. I click on the title. There we go. So you, as an instructor, you see all your teams. Students, they're only going to see the teams that they're enrolled in, that you put them in. So that's another way here on the content page. If you have generic instructions for everyone to see, you can put them here. So that if that suits your needs, you could do that. Okay, so now I'm going to do a group assignment. Again, here's one. I've got a group presentation. I've got a submission in there, so I'm going to show you how it can do ease of grading. Again, it's not interactive in terms of students interacting with students for the presentation. You could use a group forum where they could talk with each other about their presentation, as a matter of fact. But this is just the submission. It's ease of submission. One student submits for all, and it's ease of grading for you. You can grade the whole group at the same time and only look at one submission. So to do that, it's just like creating a Blackboard assignment for an individual submission. Same way, I go to Assessments, I go to Assignment, and then here's my group presentations. All right, we've talked about Blackboard assignments. You can put some instructions there if you like. We've talked about a lot of these settings in the Blackboard for effective course delivery, so I'm not going to go into detail there, but I am going to put my points in there. I do need to click on the submission details, because this is where, instead of an individual submission, I'm going to make it a group submission. All my groups are going to show on the left-hand side. So then what I need to do is remember, okay, which one, what are the groups that I want? And these are groups, these are not group sets. So then, you know, teams 4 in my group set, this is just from memory, it was 4, 5, and 6, Cardinal, Falcon, Panthers. Those were all the groups that I wanted for this group presentation. So it's not like you have to create a separate Blackboard assignment for each group. Nope, any group that is going to send this, that is going to upload this assignment, they can all be in this one Blackboard assignment. So I chose the groups I wanted to include, then I clicked the little arrow to move them over, and then this number of attempts, we've talked about that, single, multiple, or unlimited, that's in the other session. So I am just going to go ahead and click Submit. So there, and that icon looks the same. So you may want to make sure it's very clear to students that only one student from the whole team needs to submit for the entire group. So you'll probably want to make that clear in your instructions. And with everything, because I put points in there, it's going to make a grade center column. Now in that case, I'm actually going to go to that full grade center real quick, because this will be interesting. It's a nice little check for you, because theoretically, if all students have to submit as part of one of their groups, so then you have a student who enrolls in your class late, you have to add them to the group, and then you'll see this group presentation. Here's all the students in the groups that I've created, but then, oh, these students, they should be in a group. They must not be in a group because I added all my groups that I knew about. So that's kind of a check for you to see, uh-oh, something's wrong. As opposed to the group discussion forums where it will be a separate column for each of the teams. I hope that's clear. So now what I'm going to do is I have a submission. It's once one group submits, it's going to go to the needs grading area. So here it is, my user attempt. It's not going to be the student names. It would be, so if it was Team Falcon who submitted, Team Falcon would show right here. So then I can click on the attempt, group presentations. And now here, if you're familiar with inline grading, that was demoed in the Blackboard for Effective Course Delivery. So we talked about inline grading. All those tools are available for you. And here's the difference with a group submission. Here's my group, here's my team members here. So I can give feedback on the paper. I can click on the little down arrow and give feedback to this is to the entire group, so everyone will see this feedback here. And then it's out of 100, so I'm going to grade it accordingly. But let's say I think, okay, there was some peer evaluation, or for whatever reason, I feel pretty comfortable evaluating in that one of the group team members maybe didn't do as much as some of the other team members. So I have that discretion if I want to do that. If I don't, everyone's going to get a 90. But here's this loser down here, this test student. So that student, they just did not pull their own weight. So I'm going to click on the pencil, and then I can say, really, you're getting an 88. And then I click the little check mark. So now this loser test student here is going to get an 88, and all the other students are going to get a 90. So I'm going to click submit now to save my changes. And now it leaves the needs grading area. Students are going to get the feedback. They only see their own grade. They won't see the other students' grades. But now here's my group presentation. If I look here, here's my group presentation. Oh, here's 90, 90. Oh, there's that test student who only got an 88. And then where's, I think, yeah, there's then the other student is down there. So that's, again, ease of submission. I wanted to take the time to show that just because we were creating groups. So it was a convenient opportunity to do so. So up here to create that journal, I'm going to come over here to Tools, and I'm going to click on Journals. And I've already got one created. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Here I'm going to create a new journal. This looks suspiciously like a discussion forum, doesn't it? And it is very similar in structure. So here is my journal that I'm going to create. I do recommend putting instructions here because it's going to show up in the journal itself. So again, similar thing though, where you're going to have two text box opportunities. So just keep in mind they are two different ones. So I'll put some text here so you see what I mean. And then these availability options are something we've covered in other sessions. I'm just going to mention a couple of things here. Under the journal settings, this just has to do with how you get a kind of a table of contents of the journal entries once students start submitting. So that could be organized by month. I tend to set it up by week just because units tend to line up closer to weekly breakdown rather than monthly. And if I want students to contribute weekly to a journal, this works out really well for feedback. I've got a couple of options here to allow students to edit or delete. I tend to not check them. I figure, if they do an oops, they made a mistake, they can just create another entry. And similar to discussion forums, the default is it's not graded. If you wanted to grade it, you could. Keep in mind, if you are going to ask students to do multiple entries in a journal, like weekly, for example, you only give the student one grade. So if that is something that appeals to you, and you want to give students just one grade, you can weekly give them feedback. You can just comment right in their journal, and then you'll see that you're commenting on the journal. And then maybe well, I want them to do a minimum of 8 entries, and that's going to be after the end of the 8th unit. Well, then you could say, I don't want to see it in needs grading until there's at least 8 entries. Then you'll have to go manually into the journals to give them feedback. But that is a way that when you grade it just the one time, this is how you only see it once in the needs grading. And on the other hand, if you want to grade a journal entry each and every week, for example, you would then have to create 8 different journals, which you could. There's no problem with that, but if it is just between you and the student, you could also just do a Blackboard assignment and just call it a journal. So again, it just has to do with how you provide feedback and how often you want to actually grade it. So I'm going to click submit. So again, I've created my journal. Now I'm going to link it here in my content area. So here I'm just going to choose the one I just created. I'm going to click next. And now, like discussion forums, this little text box only appears in the content area. So I might have some generic instructions here. And then I'm going to click submit. So here is my journal. Now, if I wanted to, and I know we have just a few minutes left, I just wanted to share a couple of things before I show you how to access the journal and what that looks like. So here I've got in Unit 2, I've got my little weekly reflection I want them to create here. But then, and I'm only going to grade it at the end of week 8, but I don't want them to come back to Unit 2 to go and access this journal every time. So I can then go to my course content again. And if I want them in Unit 3 to, again, I'm not going to grade it, but I want them to reflect in their journal, I can go now to build content this time, and I'm going to make it a course link. So I'm going to link that very same journal, and then here's your Unit 3 reflection journal. And then I am going to look for it. Oh, I have to browse. I'm going to browse to find that journal. And I remember my original journal is in my Unit 2 folder. Here's my Unit 2 journal. I can just tell because it's gobbledygook. And here I'm going to click Submit. So now, here's my Unit 3 reflection. That's my journal, and it goes into that very same journal. So I can that student can keep adding to the journal. It's right here organized within the unit where I want them to submit that reflection, and I'll keep doing that until Unit 8, and then it's going to trigger that 8th entry, and it's going to go to needs grading, and then I can grade the student. All right, I'm going to go now to the needs grading area because, like magic, I do have a journal entry. So here is where I click on that user attempt, and now it just looks like inline grading. So here is where those instructions were. So the student, as they're entering their journal entry, they can see the instructions there. Now, if you put that in the link to the journal, that's not as, usually not as critical to keep those straight in terms of editing them. I could, and now I'll show you what I mean in terms of making a comment. I could make a comment. This is to the journal itself. But when I want to grade it and give the student feedback on the grade, I can put that here. I can give them the points, and then I click Submit, and then it's going to leave the needs grading area, and they will see the feedback and their grade. Now I'm going to show one last thing, because another way I can interact, that's not what I want. Let's go to this Unit 1, that weekly thoughts, that's in my before folder. Here's my weekly thoughts. So each week before I'm going to grade it, as you know, that first I went to the needs grading because it's ready to grade. If I just want to weekly give them feedback and interact with them, I can click on the weekly thoughts. And that's where here, this index, where I wanted to index it by week. That's where that weekly versus monthly comes into play. For this journal, all students will be posting. Here's my index on the right. I can click on it, and then I can see all the students' names here, and I can see how many entries they have. Then I can click on the student. It goes to that student's private journal, and I can see, oh, isn't that great? I can add a comment in, this is excellent. Thanks so much for sharing. You're doing so well. I really like your thought process. And I can give them just a comment in their journal. You're on your way, or I can give them feedback, and then I add it. And then they're going to just get comments from me all along the way. When they make another journal entry, it's going to be right below it, so that I can comment separately on each journal entry.